Welcome back to the Workshop Dojo. Now, this is a subject that is close to my heart. It's a problem that I suffered from extensively. How to sand, the easy way or the hard way? We're going to have a look at that today. Now, in my early years, I just used to finish a project or do whatever I was doing, pick up any old raggedy piece of sandpaper, anything that just happened to be lying on the floor that maybe my cat was sleeping on, and I simply just used that, rubbed down whatever I was rubbing down, and expected it to just work miracles, just like like a wand. I'd seen people sand, but I didn't quite understand really how to do it properly. I thought I just had to sand and miraculously the project would finish and it would just be lovely and smooth. Now, I'm here to tell you that I was completely wrong, and it took me years and years to understand this. So I'm gonna make a video. I'm gonna make it very simple indeed, and I'm gonna explain the process, the secret process. Well, it's not secret really, but it's the process that you need to go through. Really fundamentally, it just really comes down to patience and not rushing, okay? We have a habit, and I certainly did this when I was younger. I would rush the sanding because I didn't really understand it, and I didn't really want to do it, and I just really wanted to rush it, and it just seemed like an agitation to me. But the sanding of a finished product is critical. It really is, because that will take it from a rough project to something that is smooth, beautiful, and completely flawless. Okay, so this is the secret. The secret, okay, I'm going to give it to you, is simply stepping through the sanding grits. Okay, that's the secret. You need to step through the sanding grits. Okay, grits start off at a low number. So I have here, for example, a 40 grit, and that's the size of the grit. Okay, and it steps up in numbers, so it goes up. So the bigger the number, the finer the grit. And the secret is to step through the grits. So, for example, here, okay, I have some Festool sandpaper. Of course, you don't have to have Festool sandpaper. You can use any sandpaper. It just so happens that I happen to have a Festool sander just over there, and I pulled up my Festool sandpaper. But trust me, any sandpaper will do. It's not the Festool sandpaper. It's the principle that you need to understand here. So here we go. So we start off. I have a 40 grit. Now, 40 grit is very rough indeed, very rough indeed. And 40 grit is designed to cut through material very quickly, okay, and allow you to really cut things down quickly. Now, the problem with that is that big, rough sandpaper leaves lines, okay? Which is the reason that from 40, for example, and you could start at 60 if you wanted to, okay? So the next grit up is 60. You could start at 60 if it wasn't too rough. In fact, you could even start at 80 if you want to, but we'll talk about that a bit later. It's the process of moving through the grits that's important. So you start off with, for example, an 80 grit, okay? And you sand and you get everything in shape and it kind of looks okay, but it looks a bit rough. You then need to move to 60, okay? You can't jump straight up because there won't be enough power to take out the grit before. So you move to 60 and you go over everything again. And then from 60, you jump to 80, okay? And you go over everything again. And each time you go up in grits, what you're doing is you're smoothing out the lines from the grit before. And then from 80, you go up to 120. And then from 120, you go up to 180. In my experience, there's very little reason to go above 180. Not really, very little reason at all. And really, to be honest with you, once you go past 180, the sandpapers that you're using are just really to smooth down the little, the nibs they call them, which is the lumps that you get when you varnish. You get like little lumps, and they're just really to smooth down the nibs in between the varnish coats that you're doing. So you put another coat on. You don't really want to put another coat of varnish on before you've smoothed it down with like a 320 grit or something like that. But we're not really in that area. All we're really talking about at the moment is actually sanding. Now, coming back to which grit that you should start off with, okay? So 40, 60 or 80. If your work is rough or you've got something serious to take out, start at 40. If it isn't and it's kind of okay, start at 60. If it's kind of all right, start at 80. And then whichever one you start at, move up through the grits. That's the secret. The secret is to move, to step like a ladder, step up through the grits. So each time you do a sanding, the next grit that you use, you sand everything again. And then you move up to another grit. And then you sand everything again until you finally get to 180, and then you do a final rub down and you should have a glassy, smooth, perfect sand, and your project will be looking outstanding.
Ooh, yeah, yeah. Oh, baby. Ooh, yeah, yeah. Na, 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 na,
In conclusion, don't rush, okay? That is a key element here with working yourself through the grits. The only reason to jump straight to like a fine sandpaper is because you're rushing. Simple. Don't rush. The last thing that you want to do is rush the final steps of your project, because this is the time where your project needs your attention. That final end to your project needs your attention, and it needs to be slow, and you just need to make sure that everything's okay. Don't rush, and step through each of the grits in sequence. I hope this helps, and I will see you on the next Workshop Dojo.